What is up, scientists? Today it's time to grab our lab coats and our goggles as we explore the structures of plants and animals and how they adapt to particular environments. Today we're going to talk about where did this science come from? Who was the person who originally started studying all of this? And we'll go a little bit deeper into why we're studying this material now. But before we get into all that, let's talk about our essential questions for today. Now, let's talk about our essential question. Remember, essential questions in science and in different lessons can help us think about what we already know about a topic, and it helps us connect to new ideas that we're going to learn today to help us produce a new thought about the topic. Our essential questions will be focused on our different science topics. So look for keywords. In those keywords, the minute you see them and recognize them, I want you to think, what do I already know about this topic? Once you have that in your mind, you want to look at the question again to see what we're trying to answer today or what are we trying to answer about that topic. It's important to remember that an essential question is like a goal as well. By the end of our science lesson, you should confidently be able to answer the essential question. Let's go over our essential question for today. Let's look at our essential questions that we will focus on throughout this unit. Read the question with me after I read it the first time. Listen. What are some structures and functions of animals that allow them to survive in cold weather? Read that one again with me. What are some structures and functions of animals that allow them to survive in cold weather? Our second question is, listen first. What structures and functions of plants allow them to survive in hot and dry conditions? Read that one with me. What structures and functions of plants allow them to survive in hot and dry conditions? These different questions we'll be answering throughout this lesson and throughout this unit as well. You may have heard these before. We're going to be looking more into these questions, but we'll also look into why we draw these conclusions about these animals and plants who originally started wondering these things in science. Let's look at the screen now. On the screen is a picture of a person. I want you to pause the screen and take any guesses. What do you think this person has to do with what we're studying? Do you know who this person is? And when do you think this person was alive? When did he start studying these materials that we're studying today? Pause the video and talk about it as a class. Then come back and I'll introduce you to who this fine fellow is. All right, let me introduce you to who this guy is. This is Charles Darwin. He was an English scientist who loved to study nature. He was born in 1809, so way back before any of us were born, and he was born in England. He did pretty poorly when he was in school, but nevertheless, he still loved science and he still had a natural curiosity. As he continued to do his studies, he eventually became fascinated with animals and plants and how they survive in their different environments. According to his original theory, he said all living things are struggling to survive, and the things that do survive have the most helpful traits to survive in their environments. Those helpful traits are then passed down to the young, and the young plants and animals are able to learn from them, adapt, and grow to become better and more equipped to their environment. That means that animals change and plants change or evolve over years of time to adjust and adapt to their environments. We are going to do a reading today about Charles Darwin and get to know a little bit more about him. The reading we will be doing is on STEMscope. We will read it together as a class, and then you guys will get a chance to go off into smaller groups and work to answer some of the questions as a class before continuing on with independent practice. This following assessment together. Let's first make an observation about the pictures we see and the title of the article. The title is called Darwin's Finches. We were just introduced to Charles Darwin, a scientist who studied evolution in nature and in plants. Darwin's name being in the title of this article makes me think that we are going to get to spend a little bit more time learning about him. There's also a word that says finches. If you didn't know what finches were, we could take a good guess that it might have something to do with this picture. And it does. Finches are a type of bird, and we're going to see how Darwin and finches are related as we read this article. Follow along with me. Charles Darwin was born in England in 1809. As a boy, he loved science and nature. In fact, he would often spend his days outside where he could collect plants and small animals. He told Charles that a ship was about to set sail on a journey to South America. The ship was called the HMS Beagle. The captain was looking for a naturalist or someone who studies nature. Charles signed up at once. The crew's job would be to make maps of the places they visited. Charles's job would be to see what kinds of plants and animals he could collect. The Beagle spent some time in South America. Then it set sail for some smaller islands called the Galapagos Islands. These islands were rarely visited. There were even some animals and plants that had never been studied before. Charles was amazed by all the different kinds of flowers and plants he saw. He collected all that he could. He even collected different small birds called finches. I wanted to pause our reading here. Look up at the screen. I wanted to show you a picture of the Galapagos Islands. This is still a place that you can visit today. And although when Darwin visited, it was very unvisited, today there are still lots of plants and animals on these islands that are surprising people. Here is a picture of an animal that was recently found, and it's linked back to the dinosaur ages. How crazy is that? Something that still lives on our Earth, and some of us might have never seen this animal before. While Darwin was on the Galapagos Island, he also saw finches, which are types of bird. I'm going to include what finches look like in colored pictures today now, but I also want you to show you one of Darwin's original drawings. Darwin sketched out the pictures of the birds here you see opposite of his face. These were originally called Darwin's finches as he explored their original beaks and styles and how the finches looked. And now we are able to compare finches nowadays, 200 plus years later, to his drawings to see how they've changed it and adapt
Paragraph
over time.
5. It starts with the number 5 on it.
When Charles got back home, he showed these finches to a friend. This friend knew a lot about birds. He told Charles that they were all part of the same family of birds. But then, why did they look so different? Charles thought about this for a while. Then he had an idea. He realized that the birds were different because they had adaptations to their different environments. This means that they had developed traits that would help them to survive. For example, some of the finches had strong beaks. This let them crack nuts. Others had long, skinny beaks. This let them grasp insects. Charles wrote a book about what he discovered. It changed the way people thought about how animals survive. It explained why animals can be similar in some ways, but different in others. Scientists still study these finches today. One finch has a beak that it uses to peck at other birds. Then it laps up the blood. People call it the vampire finch. Another finch has a long beak that it sticks into a cactus flower to hunt for insects. Another is the woodpecker finch. It is one of the only birds in the world that is known to use tools. It finds a small twig or a cactus spine, then the finch uses the tool to dig under a tree bark for insects. People still call the finches of the Galapagos Islands Darwin's finches. They are little birds that have had a big impact on science. Now that we finished this article, you guys can spend a little bit of time as a class and you can look up the different types of finches that were talked about in paragraph number 8. After that, you guys want to spend some time answering the different questions on the bottom of the article. As you answer these questions, take your time and make sure you go back to the article to provide evidence. Just like when we're in literacy, we always want to back up our claims with evidence, especially in science. Darwin did that when he showed us that the birds had different adaptations because they had different physical characteristics that helped them survive in their environments. Now it's your turn, scientists. Get ready. Put your Charles Darwin crazy hairs on and get going. Good luck, and I'll see you guys soon.